we are received in the outside world. So it's absolutely a very critical part of that.
I think that all human beings are constructed by layers and layers of situations and facts or encounters in their lives, and so they are layers and layers of memories, one after the other, that construct the entire identity of a person. So each person is built up with these layers of experiences, and so memories and identity fuse in one only situation, which is a human being. What do you think, Mikelle?
Well, it's all precisely true. And I see it in particular in relation to photography. So if you think about a couple hundred years ago, they couldn't construct their identity through photography. And I think the most significant element of photography is that we're so busy constructing what we want to remember. Photography, just think about it. We can see our grandparents, our maybe not great grandparents, but the fact that you can see more or less, yeah, it's on the edge. The fact that you can see your parents as children is a phenomenal thing to be able to see an image of your parents as children, to see yourself as a baby. This constant obsession with selfies is because we're trying to hang on every second and create a new identity. And with photography, there's always the issue of making it look the way you want. Does it actually match reality? Everyone on the selfie is happy, but behind the scenes, you see these friends on Instagram or Facebook, and they look as if they're the happiest people in the world, and then they say, "Oh, I'm about to get a divorce," or something. You're like, what? I mean, your image is, your projected image is so different. So that's a different level as the accurate representation. That's one aspect. And the other is just having this physical evidence of this passing. And as soon as a photo is taken, it's already become history. So you're always, anytime you look at a photo, you're always comparing it to now. There's always this feeling of, oh, that was what I used to wear. Those are the people I used to know. That's the house I used to live in. That's what I looked like 10 years ago. So there's this reflection with yourself today, always in connection with what it used to be. And I think that is, an inbuilt characteristic of photography.
Yeah. And about the selfie that you introduced, do you think that these sort of habit that we got, and above all, young people started to have selfies and to take selfies all the time, deals with the concept of time, to freeze a time and really to create a memory, or is just a matter of fashion and appearing and then cancel and then go on? Because it seems to me the second option seems to be the second option, much more superficial and just the appearance of what we are and how we want to appear, more than creating a sort of memory and layers to keep for the future generations, or also for the future in general. What do you think, Victoria?
Yeah, I think that the selfie, Well, first of all, Shane and I are writing a new book on self-portraits, and it's an exhibition we're working on. And everybody's kind of going, oh yeah, self-portraits, Andy Warhol. And it's much more than that, because every image an artist makes shares a piece of their own self and a portrait of what they're doing or what they're thinking in some way or another. But I think that the selfies, it's about being a performer. It's about shouting out and saying, here am I, this is what I'm doing, give me attention. That's what I think. I mean, I guess honestly it depends on the person and what they're doing, but it certainly has changed. And then this whole thing of that, I'm not sure what the proper word is, but Adam Gross was talking about it, and Yuri, you'll remember this conversation we had. I'm not sure how to express it, so I want you to help me, please. That he was saying that we will have like masks, and we'll have this facade of a face that's not ours. Yuri, what was Adam saying?
What Adam says?
I don't. Can you go a little bit further?
Remember when he was talking about when in the future that people won't have, like, they'll have their face and they'll be under a shield, and then they'll have this like caricature of like a superhero or something that represents who they are. Remember he was talking about that in the future?
I remember, I remember conversation. I'm trying to recall the idea that he was expressing.
He was saying that, through all these disguises of, like on our cell phones, like we have this picture of who we are, and we have these like images, logos that represent who we are, but we're losing ourselves. We're actually losing our inner self. And he was saying that, the family sits down at the dinner table, and in the future, and the child has the shield on because of germs and everything else, and then they have this caricature hanging over their face of what they are representative of, whether that's he, she, or a superhero, or whatever that is. And then the father asks the child, well, how are you? And the child's like, I'm not well. But there's no way of knowing that, because we have all these veils that, and I was saying that, Michel Foucault went into this in his essay, What is Enlightenment, from 1984, and that's a whole nother topic where we've become the status quo of what is normal and what is happy, and how we all take this sort of medicine to be like the proper self at this time. It's now, and being in Hollywood here, we see all kinds of people, but in the suburbs, you see people who are kind of like asleep, like, they're all the same. There's no individuality. And when kids are in school, I know with my kid, she didn't take medicine, but if the kid has a disorder of concentration, it's like, give them the medicine. Everybody's got to be the same. Everybody's got to be the same temperament. So the selfie thing, back to that, I don't know. It's like, I don't take good pictures, so I don't have pictures of myself. It is kind of a facade of happiness, or, perfect life or success or something. I mean, I really struggle when I see some of the art presenters, and they're supposed to be representing art, and you go to their Instagram's page and it's all them, pictures of them. And it's like, well, where's the art? So I don't understand, but they are the brand. I don't know. So that's what I think. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that if we will go back and just for a second think about images in general, and how from very early on the images were taken all the way back when the only way to express was painting. That's the only way. And you will analyze just for a second the subject of painting were anything you want, but if anybody was sponsoring a painting, especially in times of the Renaissance and even earlier, they would prefer to be depicted in that painting in the most dignifying way, whether it's the robes that they would wear, whether it's the pose that they would have, whether it's a placement in a composition. But basically, it's a very human desire to be depicted in a way they want to be perceived. So this is very fundamental. There is nothing new about that, and there is nothing wrong about that. It's just the way how we are. Now, fast forward today, and suddenly you've got a technology that allows you to take a selfie just in a matter of a blink of an eye. It's not even a camera that you have to be clumsy setting up in front of a mirror and trying to do all this fancy stuff. You just extend your arm, click it, you're done. You have your selfie. And what is more important, in a matter of seconds, that selfie is being distributed through the entire world. So distribution is instant. Gratification is instant. And that's going back to your original question, Cynthia, about the young people. For young people, and we all been there, we can all call that, it's very important to establish ourselves among our peers. So in our times, it was a different way of doing that. In our times, it might have been being cool or wearing this or doing that or being smart in a subject or being strong in sports. But basically, for the young people, it's very common, again, coming out of age, establish themselves within their peer group, who they are, trying to do that. That's why selfie suddenly became so a convenient tool to do that. So you don't have any longer to be smart or to be strong or to be any kind of quality which is substantial. All what you need to do, you have to be constantly on a roll producing this selfie to the outside world. So I think on the one hand, it's very common human desire to represent themselves in a way how they perceive themselves. On the other hand, the advent of the technology is such dramatic at this point that selfie became kind of an agency to express yourself for the young people. And that's just kind of my take on your question.
Almost a sort of identity, a sort of search of identity, not an identity, but in search of identity, maybe.
Well, I would say it is identity, because for the adults, they already know how to represent themselves, so they would be carefully choosing how to be depicted. For the kids, it's just finding that identity, so they just go ballistic about it, you know.
Yeah.
So can we get into Mikelle's work, Doing Time, a love story, because this is kind of touches on what it's a story about a couple's life, and Mikelle, I want to leave it to you to speak about. And these are only 4 of 60 images. Is that correct, Mikelle?
Yeah, I have, let's see if I can show.
Because Mikelle's documenting this family's life, and quite interesting story.
Can you see this? I'm not sure if you can see this piece or not.
Yeah, we can.
Yes,
that.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So it's all the pieces together, but kind of going back to the idea about this photography that you know, we all have photo albums, and today it tends to be more digital, but we also have greater and greater storing tools and storage space. So it's true that we shoot 15 photos a day instead of 1 a year, but all gets recorded. And anyway, in this piece, Doing Time, a love story, the photos that span from 2013 on up until I think I stopped photographing her a few years ago. And it's kind of as if you pick that one day in your life where it's as if you're at a crossroads, and if you had done, if you made a slightly different choice, how your life would have completely gone down this path, or if you made this choice, it goes down that path. That day that if you had stopped for ice cream instead of taking the bus or whatever. And this couple that, because they were crossing the street and almost got hit by the taxi, and they had an encounter with the taxi driver. He got pushed, fell down and hit his head and died, and consequently this woman's partner spent the next 10 years, is spending the next 10 years in jail. I think that she relives her memories and her history probably differently than someone that had a less dramatic moment. And so it's probably as if you like reliving those days, those minutes, those years. Pardon?
Oh, nothing. Go ahead.
And so this is kind of like an unwieldy sort of growing photo album where it's just all these series, all these sort of flash forwards, flashbacks. I say flash forwards because when we shot the first work in 2013, I didn't know all of that was going to happen. This was pre this incident, but somehow it was all foretold in those beginning photographs. Either the tattoos, because she has this huge key on her arm that's actually the literal size of the jail key. There's a skull, representing death, and just the way we shot the work. I shot her through this grid, or her looking out the grid of a window. These grids, these cells, these things. I even went home and in Photoshop put a mask on her. I had no idea why. And I never used any of that work until 2020. None of it made sense until now. And I also think about this person's life in reference to today with COVID, because he got 10 years for pushing this taxi driver. There was no intention that the person would fall and hit his head and die. Of course, it was a shove because, he was angry that, maybe his pregnant wife would have been hit by a car. But you think about it now, like, thousands of people are dying per day because maybe someone went outside without a mask. I mean, potential for homicide today, unintentional, but nevertheless just as deadly, just puts a perspective on what one person's paying for one, almost casual incident compared to what we're living through today with COVID. But anyway, yeah, so that's my piece. Did I explain it well enough, Victoria? Or
yeah.
And it was also in Cynthia's time exhibition too, that you did.
Exactly. Yeah, your wonderful book. Yeah, thank you for that, Cynthia.
Yeah. So the top pieces are Erica Shire, and she's in New York, Brooklyn, New York, so she's not able to be with us. She's not able to connect. She actually went to Italy, and Mikelle found her through a video call on doing a video for Mikelle's Casa Regis, the residency program. Correct, Mikelle? You found her?
Yeah, I put out an open call asking for a video artist, and I selected her work, and she came and spent 2 weeks here, and so I've been following her since, and took her work to Photo Fever, and so she makes collodion prints. So I don't know if you know what collodion prints are. You probably do.
No, I don't know.
Oh, okay. So it's a photography technique that they were doing in the 1850s, and it's a glass plate or a metal plate. It's extremely labor intensive. You have to put all the chemicals on. It has to be shot while the chemicals are wet on the plate. So, and then you have to develop immediately. So you have to have your dark room next to where you're shooting, or have a traveling dark room. And it's subject to lots of scratches and dust. And so it's what gives that kind of cool effect to the images that have the edges sort of corroded, and it's kind of sketchy. So it's a stinky, difficult antique process that she then prints on metallicized paper. It's a very particular
metallicized paper. Yeah.
Yeah.
And very interesting. And those are, Victoria, those are hair prints.
Yeah, those are they're 5 by 4 inches, so they're they're not very big, and they're unlimited editions, so they're not an edition. If she would have sold the plates, that would have been something else. But so I selected these from her portfolio, that it wasn't anything that she did created on memory. She also does taxidermy, so I like that image of the bird. The cat was one of her cats that passed away. They're images, and I like her work because she's using an older method technique, but with today's imagery, and I find that kind of refreshing. And then I have work by Greg Smith. He was supposed to join us on the call. I don't know what's happened. But these plates that were part of his family history from his great-grandmother. She was born in 1887. And she's from the south of England, and she immigrated at 15 years old with 3 children to New York City. Went through Ellis Island and everything. Had a life there with her kids, baking bread and selling it on the street, just immigrant's life, and did a lot of different things. She eventually got a job on a cruise ship, kind of like the Queen Mary, as a nurse, and started traveling the world on the cruise ship and started collecting objects. She even got a monkey and a parrot. And she was a person who not only photographed her life and as much as she could in the mid 1900s, but also wrote extensively what happened each day and the highlights. And so this artist, Greg Smith, he acquired all these pieces, and some of them broke. He's been writing a book assimilating all these things together, wants to do a pop-up book of just her life. And not that she was an incredible person, but just historically her journey. And so because some of the objects broke, he went in and he got into using the Japanese kintsugi method of just joining that gold and keeping it. And so he's a man who's gay. So some of these smaller objects he acquired, and he started taking them apart. And I feel like these objects are a bit of visual anthropology, in a sense that these are not things that we would buy or find. They're objects that he collected in antique shops, and he's taking them apart, adding the gold and silver leaf, changing some of the identity of these people, men's heads on top of, female imagery, changing the heads on doctors. He's just playing. He's sort of playing with that identity role as he is in his own life, changing time. And I just felt that they were, quite interesting. And I was excited to show objects. And I just felt like, if there was an Armageddon and the world ended, and sadly, which would be horrible, and 2,000 years pass, just as we look at Egyptian or Roman or early Greek works, and you find these pieces that they don't really make sense. And, what are people going to think, these objects?
Yeah.
What does it say about us today? So.
Yeah. We interrupted maybe, or we changed our discussion while Yuri were presenting, had to present his own work. So Yuri, can you talk about your work? Because I know something, because you gave me those photographs for the book Time, but it is interesting to see and to hear what you have to say about that photographs that you are presenting here in LA now.
Um, I I think the most important for me
Sorry,
was
Yuri, about that.
yeah.
By the
No,
way,
that's fine.
sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you. I apologize.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's good. Um, I, the visual piece of this entire exhibition was obviously much easier to do because I decided to go with the canvas with a very specific purpose, to be able to write on it, to be able to tie in the text. As you know, the little fable that I wrote specifically for that body of work was integral part of the project, and I thought, what is the best way to tie the words and the verbal narrative into the imagery that will be displayed. Again, there was a certain restriction on the space, and we decided to go a small image, but also printed on canvas. Originally, I thought that I'll be able to use larger scale lettering using the paint on those images on canvas. But then during the production, I understood that it might be a little bit too um, overwhelming to have. It's going to take the body into a different direction, because when you put the text, the lettering on the image, it becomes extremely powerful. So I had to be very careful not to disrupt the entire narrative in visual by introducing too much of a influence from the textual. So I ended up just flatly writing in a cursive, and again, the other aspect was how much of a text would go on the visual material, and it was a challenge because the fable is very poetic. It flows. It's kind of, each sentence comes out of the previous one and leads into the next one, and to take it in a way. Let me just hold on just a second.
Quite loud. En plein air.
Yeah.
Do you still have airplanes flying?
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, we do.
We have very few.
Yeah, we have
Sky
also
is
very few.
nice now.
But this is a helicopter, and it's a
The
police helicopter, and it's a
Okay.
police helicopter. So they always
Yeah,
up in the air.
yes.
So that's always the
Yeah.
case. But I was saying about that, to tie that kind of a floating single form of the fable into the images, and I decided to go with really very small snippets, which would be kind of associated with the emotional feelings about that specific place. So, for example, I put just maybe 2 or 3 words for the dark images, whereby I have enough room to display those, not intrusively, but to display those words, yet not to be very overly consumptive of this space. And so that pretty much led to the idea of having the handwritten text still be present, because again, space constraint of a space is small, and maybe if it would have been a larger space, then the text could have been placed on the wall. and so like in a sticky or some kind of a font which will attract a lot of attention. So it will be a little bit more integral to the space. But in this case, due to the group show, due to this restriction of space, we decided to do that as a handwritten note pinned on the wall. So that's pretty much how this body of work, which was originally presented in your anthology time, was adapted to the space, physical space, which is small, and it's a group show. So that's kind of a different representation of that body of work.
I find these last series of photographs very interesting, because in a certain way, I would say you gave voice to the mute atmosphere in a certain way.
Yeah.
You realized and you made the atmosphere talking. And I find it extremely interesting and nice, even though sometimes like this one, I see that you chose not to intervene with the writing on this one which has the stair. And I find that some of the atmosphere you depicted, you photographed, they don't need any word. Some others gives me the idea that you gave voice to the void, or to the atmosphere, as the landscape in itself wanted to talk. And I find it very, very interesting. For instance, this one, I am not able, excuse me, yes, Victoria, exactly this one. I am not able to recognize what is depicted. Maybe the jars of fruit.
Right, right. It's pickled. Those are pickled apples.
Yeah, apple. And so I think that this kind of situation is in a certain way is not more complete or not complete as photography. I am not saying this. I am just saying you gave voice to the apples, for instance, or to the jars, and you humanized the atmosphere, and the atmosphere became a person, and the person wanted to talk. I think that I find this a strange mental passage, you know?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I certainly didn't think that way when I said, but if it is in there and you see it, it's more the better. I mean, I'm very happy for that. But that the idea there, I love the idea that you said, that it gives the voice to the void. It gives the voice to the silence. So silence suddenly becomes audible. It's really nice. It's really nice.
Yes,
Thank you.
silence that became audible. Yes, Victoria, just a question. Have you registered this conversation?
Have I recorded it?
Recorded, sorry.
Yeah, I started, I realized in the beginning when Yuri started talking that I should try recording. So I am recording it. I didn't get your permissions, but I figured I'll wait to try.
Keep it for me. Keep it for me, because sometimes, you know, talking, it is very interesting because, for instance, it was spontaneous to me to ask things, or to think and to say. And in half an hour, maybe I will forget. And even though it's difficult that I forget something in the art field or my sensations, but in any case, you know, it is much better recording it. And I thank you if you keep it for me.
Okay, I will for sure.
Also, I wanted to say, Yuri, I mean, I really like this work. And I think back to the idea of memory, if you just had always lived there and never left, I don't think you would have made those photos. But having left and having had that space as a memory, I think is what's so delicate about the photos. Like there's definitely a going back to, there's definitely like, oh, this sense of that's what a childhood was like, or the sort of separation of the way that you were raised, or grandparents lived there as compared to life in LA. And there's this kind of ethereal reliving. It's delicate, it's aesthetic, and it presents this way of life that's possibly slipping away, or maybe not there, but definitely has here. So there's memory written all over it. And there's also just this sumptuousness, like you want to go back to that. You want to be that. You want to eat that fruit. I want those pickled apples.
Because it is identity, Mikelle. Excuse me, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to add that this is what I meant as identity, the search for identity, and the layers that makes in the history personality like the final personality. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just want to complete my thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
very,
thank
very
you. Yeah, Mikelle. Yeah, Mikelle, thank you very much. You kind of picked on those things. Indeed, it's one thing which was very unusual is that very often we have memories related to something which we think already gone and would never be possible to be repeated, right? To relive those moments. What was very unusual with this body of work that it was inspired by slightly opposite. Actually, I should say not slightly, completely opposite. That it's the memories of the place which turns out to be very much alive. And so that is still alive today. It didn't disappear. It lives its own way. So it's not just my memory, which I kind of kept, and I will never be able to return to that, but it's the real life, which is still there. It's still viable.
If you had not come to live in the United States, you probably wouldn't have been inspired to make those photos. So there's something about something about the distance from that thing that inspires you to photograph.
I asked Yuri, in our interview, Yuri and I did a live feed, and then Mikelle and I tried to do a live feed, but we're gonna do a Zoom. It didn't work so well with the connection. But in Yuri's live feed, I asked him, what came first, the visit or the photographs, because of course he had no intention on doing this exhibition for Cynthia or for myself, and also the fable, because the fable talks about two streams, and I really wanted him to explain that to me, and Yuri, you did touch on that. Go ahead, say, if you may, mention why you felt compelled going back to take those photos.
It happened by accident because, again, the first came the visit. It was just being there and have a chance to go to my grandparents' place, and I decided, okay, wonderful, I'll go and just, my distant family still lives on the and owns the property, and it's a regular kind of family visit. That was all what it was about in the beginning. But then when I got there, then at that point when all it started. So I didn't have intention to shoot any work, but when I had spent a couple of days there, it was just an urge to do it because it was so obvious. And again, even with that said, the body of work was done, but it was still not complete to me in my mind because it lacked something. It lacked something which would kind of bring this idea to the forefront. And so that's why when Cynthia invited me to participate in anthology and asked for the written portion to be part of this, it was a trigger. It was very interesting, and so I wrote that fable, and that fable was precisely what needed to complete the work. And so it was very, very, very interesting experience.
And Yuri, sorry, the fact that you added some words inside on the photographs, it came after for this exhibition with Victoria. Okay, so it is sort of continuation.
Correct.
Of the
Correct.
body of work. I think that is very, very interesting that you had a sort of continuation and a sort of development, a sort of other opening of your body of works in something else that I find very, very interesting, so that you can take together everything in and is a complete body of work, because with this writing, I think that you expressed almost everything you wanted to say with this
That's correct.
body of work.
Yeah, that's correct. Because after this, I felt, all right, this is finally came to the conclusion. This is done, completed.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna change anything.
Yeah.
May I say that once we installed the work, and I was really disappointed in myself that I didn't have Yuri make the images, some of the images much larger, like 30 by 22 and 30 by 22, to really sort of hang off the wall and be much larger. I would have really loved to do that, have them in different sizes, but I just didn't conceive it at that time to understand the work, how it would be, because I really want some of them very, very big, and I want the paper, the script. You know, Yuri and I talked about it. We wish we would have, written on the wall. Some of that, I would love to have a huge piece of paper, maybe like 30 by 70, and let it hang off the wall, and Yuri write on it, you know, not necessarily bigger, but handwrite it, and have it be paper that's sort of fragile, like, you know, brittle in a way, not too brittle, but I just would have liked it a little more tactile and revealing of the senses.
Well, it's kind of interesting to think about, you know, each work calls for a certain size depending on the meaning. And, you know, it's interesting, you know, are memories big? Are they small? Or, you know, I wonder what Yuri physically feels about the size of these photos. Like, how can you internalize, you know, what's internalized in this message of memories, and on what does that translate to in terms of actual dimension? You know, it's important. It's really, really important, the size of the work. It could be small, it could not. I mean, Yuri, what is your like gut feeling about the proper way to physically interface with these memories?
Yeah.
I think it's a great question, Mikelle, because internalizing memories definitely can be tied into the size, large, small, minor, major, and so forth. My approach in this particular case was a little bit simpler. It was pretty much thinking about the presentation space. So the gallery space was small, and therefore it dictated the sizes of the work to be presented. So I would say that in this specific case, it was very much utilitarian approach rather than more of a philosophical, artistic way of thinking about it that you represent, that you just posed. And I think it's a very not just interesting proposition, but also it is very deep if you will think about that. But you would have to conceive it that way. So that then size will become the part of your work, and you would not deviate from that. You would say, okay, this image is going to be only in this size, and that image is going to be only in that size or shape or quality of print material. So this is something which is really taking the body of work into different level. It's almost like what Cynthia said, that having the words inscribed on the images moves it a different up to a different level. So your idea, Mikelle, would move it even to further level, because then you become you start to incorporate dimensions related to the internal process of memory, and that's very interesting.
May I add something else? I would never conceived an exhibition, a photography, an exhibition in general about memory with photographs in a large scale. Because in my opinion, memory, as I told before, memory is connected to identity, and I find that memory is even more intimate than the body. For example, you can work on your body, and you can also show your body, the actual body, that the body which is the outside of yourself, you can also show in large scale. Whereas what is inside your memory, inside your identity, in my opinion, is something that is much more intimate, and you have to keep it in a small size. I don't know why. I think that I need a psychologist or a psychiatrist to interpret this will or this thought, but in my opinion, memory is connected to intimacy, and so is a small requires a small size. I don't know if you have the same idea, Mikelle.
Well, I think it's probably because we've just grown up with these handheld size photographs of, when you look at your family photo album,
yes, they are very small. Yeah.
So it's probably because of the relationship we've had in our entire lives to family photographs. But I had this flash, Yuri. For me, the perfect way to see your work is in an old style slide projection, like the people sitting on the couch, you're in semi-dark, and people are drinking something and handing popcorn back and forth, and then there's the click of the projection.
Click. Yeah.
Old format slide style. That's the way.
Very nice. A glass of wine.
Love to see those images, I think.
Very nice. Well.
Oh, I lost you. I lost some text.
No, I say very nice, and a glass of wine in a warm atmosphere. I agree with you.
Exactly. Yeah. What do you think about a slide projection, Yuri?
Well, it's a very, very distant memory, and it's a beautiful thing, and I love it. But it's going to be the same size. All of them are going to be the same size.
In a slide projection, yeah.
But that brings a cinematic effect. Any kind of a projection, and especially when you're relaxed, reclining in your chair, so on a sofa, and you have some popcorn, wine, or whatever, it immediately brings you into the dimmed lights, so it immediately brings you into this magic experience of imagery in front of you, and this is very intimate. It's very intimate. That's a part of it, what plays out.
And also, especially if it's informal, it's also, what you did with your family. When no one else would ever be willing to sit through slides in that way, unless it was your own travel memories, your own family. So there is a cinematic effect about it, but it's also the cinematic effect gone wrong. Like, the slide gets stuck in the projector, and you have to turn the lights back on. You're like, wait a minute, everybody. And, you would only sit through that if it was, a sort of a friendly family related situation. But there is that closeness and intimacy about it, because, you're going to see something that's related to something you've lived. And so it's,
Absolutely agreed. It should be only a friendly environment. It shouldn't be a public environment. You're right, because you lose that intimacy once it's in a public environment. It has to be perfect. The process has to be perfect. While if you're in a family, or as we used to do within the closed circle of friends, having that fun. So it's exactly part of that. Everybody yells, everybody, boos and hoos and says, hey, look at that, and hey, look at this, That's very, very
cool. I have to say that people who came to see the show, we weren't sure how many people would come because we've been in lockdown. And I know the other residents here, Cynthia knows this space really well, the Western Avenue and all the different artist spaces. Mikelle, I look forward to you visiting one day. People were really interested, like, how are you going to transform Yuri's space and do this exhibition, And I have to say that people, when they came in, they were like, we had Artillery Magazine come on it from yesterday, and she's like, well, where's the exhibition? And we said, this is it. She goes, take us to the exhibition. And I'm like, turn around.
They haven't understood anything. They haven't understood completely.
Cynthia knows how small the space is. And so it was pretty funny because you can understand with the curtain up there, Cynthia, and you're
yes.
I mean, it's pretty
coach,
obvious.
I remember, the coach.
It's pretty obvious. But but overall, people were like, because of the state of, the lockdown, people were like, oh, this feels really good to be here and to be in this living space, and I feel like I'm in your home, and I can't be in your home because we can't meet. And I feel like I'm getting this, again, the sense of intimacy to know who you are and talk about like folklore, genealogy, or of our families and our lives. And one fellow who came in, he was Mexican, but he was actually Native American, and he said that his name was changed because of persecution of other Indian tribes, and how his family history has only been of the spoken word. There's nothing written, and he's trying to piece it together. And what a nice 4 stories by 4 different artists about memory and life, and taking them into their own personal space, and not just an image of an artwork to fill in the gaps of what it is. So
you also said that Alice sat there for an hour on the couch. No, Alice from the lodge. She sat there for.
We couldn't get her out. And then she went and she was so inspired that she went and she created a new exhibition based on her experience here. That's up right now. So, in the sense of creating sort of a living room in the gallery. Not anything based on memory, but she brought in a bunch of furniture, and it's quite nice. So it's just different. I wouldn't do it every time, but for this time I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know, Cynthia, what you feel about that comment. Like, what do you honestly feel about that?
The installation.
Yeah, being in Yuri's space and
I find yes, I find that I like also the difference in colors, and I find that the idea of the intimacy, talking about memory and about intimacy, something which is very intimate, and memory, the entire installation is very nice, very special, very particular, and yes, is a sort of yeah, the right atmosphere to talk about memory. Yeah, in my opinion, also because I am Italian, so I am used to these kind of spaces, all the spaces with all the links and little objects or mirrors, frames, you know, so he is very close to my idea of memory. Maybe we have also different ideas of memories in relation with our origins. Maybe a native Angelino person has another relation with the idea of memory, but an Italian person with all the tradition that we have on our shoulder, the idea of memory and is immediately connected to small objects and old things. So the installation is perfect. But I am Italian. I am judging, never judging. But anyway, I'm commenting as an Italian.
yeah.
This installation. Excuse me, I have to leave you in a few minutes, and I just want to know. I want to pose a question to Mikelle. Do you have the performance, the light performance on the 24th? And have you already installed the exhibition of Shane?
So the everything's closed down. The idea was that there would be the fiaccolata, the procession with the candle lights that would go to the big funnel. The all of that's been stopped. So all I can do is illuminate Shane's exhibition with candlelight, and people can come. I mean, for the few days we have total lockdown, but otherwise people from the comune, or I've just had two, 3 people coming at a time. So it's just a very personalized showing of the space.
No, I want just to propose, if you like, to have another, to set up another Zoom meeting. Maybe when you decide it is the best way to show your exhibition and to show us your installation, because I am extremely curious about the space, about the installation. You can make a sort of video film, and as I have to go now, we don't have time, but it is also very nice if we can organize another Zoom like this. And so we have had the experience of Victoria installation and the exhibition, and we will have the experience of your installation, which is absolutely, I am looking at the photographs, the pictures, but I think it is very extremely nice if you can make a live tour with us.
Yeah,
I would love to. I'll have to do a run through maybe with Victoria first to see if I have enough of an internet connection there. And if I do, I would absolutely love to do that. That would be fantastic. Yeah.
And we can also invite Shane to join us.
You would love that.
Yes, I would love it because I can see you all, and it's extremely nice for me. They are wonderful pieces, really fantastic pieces, very nice. Okay,
Thank
so
you, Cynthia. Thank you for the talk.
thank you very, very much. And I was extremely happy to see you all. And so we can share the wishes for a Merry, Merry Christmas. Even between Christmas and New Year's Eve, I am available. So just decide when you want to have another Zoom meeting. So I have the opportunity to see you again, Yuri and Victoria and Shane. Okay.
Okay. Great.
All right.
Great.
Excellent.
Merry
Bye,
Christmas.
Cynthia.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much,
And
Cynthia. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you
Yuri,
for
and thank you, Mikelle, so much for
Bye-bye.
bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
Wait, Yuri and Victoria, can you stay online?
Yeah. Let me hold on. Let me just figure out how to not share it anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, maybe you don't want to record it anymore. I don't know.
Okay. Yuri, can you come in?